We want to begin on this Wednesday morning, though, with the growing frustration over the inability of lawmakers to reach a deal on raising the debt ceiling. Kelly O'Donnell's on Capitol Hill. Kelly, good morning.
Good morning, Matt. You know, time was already a problem, and now this unexpected setback for Speaker Boehner and his plan to raise the debt limit and reduce the debt. The number crunchers from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office say the math just didn't add up. The savings were not as great. So Speaker Boehner's team is going back to work to find more cuts, just as the public is so increasingly frustrated. That ringing heard across the Capitol.
Good afternoon, Speaker Boehner's office. How may I help you?
Is the sound of frustration.
Good afternoon, Senator Durbin's office. How may I help you?
Constituents stuck on hold.
Right now, average wait time is about 60 minutes.
While Congress is just stuck, unable to forge a deal to prevent the country's first ever default. A defining issue for Republicans has been this promise.
There's more cuts in spending than you have an increase in the debt limit.
But then a big setback Tuesday night. The Congressional Budget Office did the math and found the Boehner plan came up short on spending cuts, $150 billion less than expected.
There is only one thing worse than Republicans and Democrats failing to agree to lift the debt ceiling, and that is lifting the debt ceiling without a well-thought-out plan and with hasty cuts totaling trillions of dollars over a decade. What business do you know that is still in business that would operate this way, making massive long-term cuts negotiated by exhausted executives without any strategic plan? It certainly wouldn't be a business you'd expect to thrive or be around for very long. Maybe you can grow without a plan, but if you cut without a plan, you will almost surely hit an artery or a bone that could really debilitate you, and that appears to be where it's going. Stop for a minute and ask, what would it look like if we were approaching this problem properly? For starters, 2 years ago, Congress and the Obama administration could have collaborated on a series of hearings under the heading, "What World Are We Living In?" They would have included a broad range of business, education, and technology leaders testifying about what are the major trends and opportunities that are expected to shape the job market for the next decade. Surely, the hyper-connecting of the world, the intensification of globalization and outsourcing, the challenges of energy and climate, and the growing automation of the workspace that is rapidly increasing productivity with fewer workers, all would have figured prominently. But things in Washington don't get done proactively. They only seem to react to things after the fact. It's all about kicking the can down the road and getting reelected, so the American people end up with a dysfunctional government. There's also something much more going on here, because there is a spiritual side to everything, too. So, they should have put together the National Commission for 21st Century America with this assignment. Given these big trends, what will America need to thrive in this world, and how should we adapt our unique formula for success? Yes, we have developed such a formula over the course of American history, and it is built on 5 basic pillars: educating the workforce up to and beyond whatever technology demands, building the world's best infrastructure of ports, roads, and telecommunications, attracting the world's most dynamic and high IQ immigrants to enrich our universities and start new businesses, putting together the best regulations to encourage risk-taking while curbing recklessness, not always perfectly, and funding research to push out the boundaries of science, and then let American innovators and venture capitalists pluck out the most promising new ideas for new business. Only after we had done all that would we then sit down with a blank sheet of paper and say, okay, given our current fiscal predicament, where should we cut spending, and where must we raise new tax revenues so that they can bring our government back to solvency, and at the same time rebuild our formula for growth and success. After all, we don't just need a plan for regaining American solvency. We need a plan for maintaining American greatness and sustaining the American dream for the generations to come. In other words, what about the kids? Such a plan would require cutting, taxing, and spending. It requires cutting because we have made promises to ourselves on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid that we cannot keep without reforming each of them. But we cannot possibly generate the savings or the new investments we need in our formula for success by just taking funds from these social programs and shredding the social safety nets. That would trigger a backlash against free market capitalism, and free market capitalism is supposedly the engine of our growth, and growth is the best way to reduce the deficit, at least as far as the old ways are concerned. But these days are not like any others. Many things have already changed. Perhaps it's time to start thinking differently about all these things, with new ideas and new solutions. It shouldn't be about just kicking the can down the road. And again, like I say, there's also a spiritual side to everything, and there is a spiritual side to war or warfare. Perhaps the war or wars are not right, and too much national treasure and lives and money has already been spent on them. This too is another sign of the times, and another physical manifestation of the book of Revelation. Everything is numbered, and everything is connected. It's also about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations. Again, Daniel chapter 12, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which stands for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of troubles, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. 2. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. 3. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Revelation chapter 8, verse 12. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened. And the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. 13. And I beheld, and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, 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 to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels, which are yet to sound. Yes, it's decision time. It's time to stop kicking the can down the road. And it's also time for all prophecy to be fulfilled. Everything that must change quickly or rapidly, and for the better. The harvest is ripe to be harvested. The fourth angel is sounding now.